Hello and welcome to Marriage and Money, a weekly podcast brought to you by a seemingly financially incompatible couple bonded by the legal contract of marriage. My name is David, your favorite saver, and I'm joined today once again and always by my smoking hot spender of a wife, Heather. How are you doing?
Hello. I am struggling this week, man.
Oh my gosh.
We were able to do a little staycation this past weekend, and while it was a staycation, it kind of did feel like we got away for a little bit, and it has been a challenge. The struggle is real getting back into the work this week. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Well, it does make a difference to get away. I mean, I'm feeling the same, as you know. It's just getting away for the weekend as much as it's needed, especially in times like this when we're all struggling to get away, when we're struggling to find some normalcy and some rays of hope in life. It's important, but when you find that, like any vacation, it's just hard to get back to the real world.
Agreed, which is timely for what we want to talk about today.
Exactly. Thank you for that segue. So this week we wanted our topic to be, because we just took a vacation, we thought it might be appropriate to jump into the topic of vacations. So I was reading recently about how most Americans, at least, have not taken vacations. Something like 72% was one of the statistics I was hearing of Americans didn't take a summer vacation, and that is maybe it's not surprising.
I don't know what the average is, but that seems like a lot of people aren't taking vacations.
Right. It was surprising for me. It shouldn't have been, because up until this past weekend, I haven't taken a vacation.
I know. Shame on you.
So and it's September. So so maybe it shouldn't have been that crazy. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on vacations? What do you think is driving this primarily? Do you think it's a financial situation that's driving it? Do you think it's safety? Do you think it's just the availability of financial or vacation spots, or a combination of everything? People worried about losing their jobs and saving money?
I don't think you can nail it down to one thing. I think it's a mixture of a lot of those things. The data in the article, it didn't list safety as a top item, but I do think, a lot of people are really concerned about being safe and healthy, and I think that is a driver. But I think it's just also the biggest thing is, where are you going to go? A lot of places aren't letting us fly there or travel there or go there, so I think part of it's that, you save up and you want to go on this amazing trip, and if you're not allowed to go there, or you physically can't, it's like, well, I'd rather wait than, maybe do a staycation like we did. But
Yeah. So why didn't you go until now?
That's a great question. I think I was holding out hope. I thought, mean, we had plans. We were going to do these trips, and we just literally cannot go. And I think I was just waiting to maybe it'll lighten up. Maybe we'll get to go somewhere. So I think I was holding out hope that things would be a little bit of a different situation. And it's not. I mean, you said you didn't take a vacation this year. I did take a week off. I think it's super important to unplug from work. Even though I didn't go anywhere, I went to the spa for a couple hours, did some shopping, but I just had to take a break and disconnect from work, and it made a big difference. And I really encouraged a lot of people on my team to do the same. So I think it's really a necessity, even if you can't go anywhere. So I just finally gave in, but I don't know. Why haven't you?
Right. Well, for me, it was more about hoping that I'd be able to use that time elsewhere. I was thinking, vacation time's limited, and I thought, well, eventually this is going to open up, and I'll be able to do something I want to do. I'll be able. The concept of staycations I don't really like, because I'm not seeing anything new. Staying in a hotel. I don't get that much. I mean, yes, I like being taken care of and having people serve me a little bit, but hotels don't excite me quite the same way of going someplace, seeing something new, and getting a new experience.
And I totally agree with you. I would say a staycation is an and, not an or for me. It's like, of course I want to go on a real vacation, And
And
if we throw in a couple little staycations or go to a hotel for the weekend, I'm good with that. But I agree, it's not that exciting and shouldn't be
and I think
primary.
that's where you and I differ a little bit, is because it doesn't feel like an and I don't know, for the
I'm often an
a new,
and.
this is kind of a new podcast still for us, but as you'll get to know, I I am very much in the camp of why spend money on a vacation that's just kind of, or money on anything that's just kind of a let's bide our time with it, or let's do something just to do something. Like, I want to have some purpose to it. And it feels kind of like a staycation is one of those things that you do just because you can't do anything else. And it feels like burning money to me a little bit.
And I see it more as an and. It's like, it's a nice thing to do as well. But I mean, what's kind of how did you grow up with like vacations? Like what was that to you, or what did it look like typically for you? For me, like vacation was like every year we went on at least one big vacation, maybe a couple other little trips. Like it was something I really looked forward to. We would plan and save, and it was something that we did. It almost was an expectation. It was a treat. It was definitely something special and fun to do, but it was kind of like an expectation, like, well, yeah, we're going to go on a vacation, or we're going to go on a couple trips this year. Um, is that
Yeah. Well, and that,
similar or
well, as,
dissimilar?
yeah, we're married. So this is kind of leading the witness a little bit, knowing the answer. And yeah, but no, of course, yeah, I did not have that experience. So my experience was much different. It was very much, vacations were going camping, and I loved camping. Like, it was a blast when we went camping, bonfires and marshmallows, and went to a place where there was kayaking and horses that we could ride, and oftentimes we went with families that we were close friends with, and so there was a lot to look forward to when we were doing these vacations camping. But as far as like get on an airplane and go someplace or even leave the state, that never really happened. We went to Disney once, which was amazing growing up. But that was really the only time growing up that I got on an airplane to go on vacation. And so, yeah, I mean, granted, now, that's that's very different from you, but it was still, they felt like vacation. They felt like vacations. I think it was just a different scale of vacation, and and even what we've been doing here now, during lockdown and such, and during this whole COVID piece, doesn't even seem to the level, like, I think we're talking about different levels
Yeah,
entirely
no,
than
that's
even
fair.
both of us grew up with and both of us are accustomed to,
For
right?
sure. And I think like in the article it said the people that did travel, right? Like did a road trip, which I don't know. I mean, I think road trips are still people love to go on them and do them, but I think they're less common, right?
Right.
Which is kind of interesting because again, it's really something easy to do. It's what most of us did growing up, 40 years ago or whatever. So I think it's neat that families, even if they're not if they are getting away, that hey, they're jumping in the car, they're going somewhere maybe a little bit more local to a state park, or just something a little bit more in the neighborhood, which I think is kind of nice to bring that back a little bit.
Yeah.
I know I've talked to friends that have chosen the road trip route, and that's not typically what they would do, and I think that's kind of a positive aspect that's come out of this.
So I think that's a huge positive, is trying out new things, trying out the road trip. I think the piece you said around just where you took a week off work just to take a week off work, I think that's a huge thing as well. That's important, just from a mental health standpoint, but then also financially, being able to do these different types of vacations, I think overall have been good for everyone outside of the vacation
The
industry.
vacation industry,
So,
yeah.
not to downplay anyone in the vacation industry and the struggles that you're going through. And, if you work at a restaurant, if you work at a hotel, if like, there's a lot of service industry folks, right, that are certainly impacted. But for those of us that are outside of the service industry, and have positions that afford us to be able to work from home, I think this time has been a great time to be able to save money on things like vacation, but experience it in a new way. So it's not it's not all bad. As much as I
Yeah.
like to go on vacation, and I know you and I have had conversations elsewhere outside of recording that around how I am anxious to get out on vacation, but we don't have to look at this as all bad either.
Yeah, and I think it's a huge point that this has been positive on the pocketbook, and I think that's also part of the reason, one of the reasons people aren't even going, or if they are, they're doing something more local or a road trip, is because of the concern. I mean, not everybody is in a solid place with where their job is or what their company is doing or work. They might even already be out of work or furloughed, and so this is the type that's when you cut on those areas, right? It's like, well, if we don't have a job, probably shouldn't be spending money on vacation, or if we're concerned with that, right? So I think that's a big driver. And for those, even if that you aren't impacted financially, to your point, it is a positive because either you're not going and not spending money in that area, or you're doing something a little less costly, like a road trip or something local.
Right,
So
right. And alternatively, if you do have money burning in your pocket, I'm sure you can find something to something to spend it on locally.
if not, I can help you out.
I'm
I'm
sure
always
you
here. I'm
I'm
a
sure
phone
you
call away.
can. I I'm sure there's some nice food that we could have delivered that you wouldn't mind setting
Mhm.
up, or I don't know what. You probably have a whole host of ideas that I
Which is
couldn't even think
why
of.
I had no problem taking a week off work and not going anywhere because there was some money spent. Let's get that right.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, which I reminded you about, if I recall, when I was making a purchase myself recently.
But I think it's interesting because I think vacations change, right? Like unless you're just, an unusual every year we go to the same place, we do the same thing. I think for us in our married life, vacations have looked a lot different. Some years when we've been really working on a savings goal or kind of tightening the belt, it has been a road trip or, something pretty on the cheap side. Renting or going to a lake or camping. We've done some camping trips, things like that. And then there's been other years where it's been like, hey, we want to do this trip of a lifetime or something that we've been looking forward to and we've saved up and we've had some pretty nice trips as well. So I think, everybody's situation is different and it kind of depends on where you're at in life and what you're struggling with or where you're in a good place and yeah, it can just look like a lot of different things.
Yeah, so our vacation efforts and budgets and destinations have changed based on the season of life we're in, the financial season of life we're in, right? And how is it, would you say that we've recognized that and adapted? Like, what were some of the
Sure.
things where we recognized, hey, this is a time of life where we need to adjust what we're doing um, in order to meet our goals or in order to be responsible or whatever. What would you say are some of the milestones we've looked at or flags that we've noticed, red flags we've seen that said, hey, it's time to make a change?
Well, I think for us, it's always gone back to our goals, right? Our long-term goals and our short-term goals. And the vacation budget, the vacation fund is something that's easy to flex, right? It's not a need, like you have to pay for rent, you have to pay for food. You don't have to go on vacation, however, I would argue maybe you do. But um, so it's one of those items that is easy to flex depending on the life situation where you're at. So for us, I think it's been our goals. Like what are we trying to do right now? Are we in this spend and let's have experiences or are we in this tighten our belt and we want to pay off some debt? And so it's kind of fluctuated. For us, it's been kind of a reward as we've reached milestones or, paid off our house or did something like that. We were like, all right, now we can, loosen the belt a little bit and increase that vacation budget and do some of these trips we wanted to do. But it's all been driven off of communication on what our priorities and what our goals are. What would you say is key or fundamentals on how to, if you were to recommend to people how to set a vacation budget to go about looking at it?
Well, so first and foremost, I would say it starts with setting a savings goal. So again, for me, it's all about savings. So as you know, am very attached to the safety and security of knowing that I'm saving for the future and that I'm going to have something to invest every month. I'm going to have something to set aside for the future. And so if that's not there, um, I get nervous. And so for me, it starts with what is that savings goal that I need to hit this month or this year, or whatever that time period is, and then backing out from there. And obviously then there's other expenses that happen, right? And so you strip that away, and vacation would be lower on that list for me of what I would do with money at the end.
So it's
So
almost kind of your at the end of it, what's left over.
it's kind of a what's left over. Yes, to a point. But there also is a point where you could say, oh, the vacations I want to take, maybe all the vacations I want to do are those camping trips, right?
Sure.
And so maybe I don't need to save $500 a month to do a camping trip. Maybe I need to save $10 a month, or maybe it's $20 a month to do this camping trip that I do once a year. I don't know how much that the camping trip might cost, but the point is that depending on what your goals are for that vacation, that could change it. The other thing I wanted to mention was when we've done a couple moves in our life, and we did a big move mainly due to you. You've drugged me on a few moves. I'm the guy that doesn't like change. But
you married the wrong person, friend.
I'm reminded of that on a regular basis. But in any event, when we've made these big life changes and moved across country, moved as we are now, moved to the other side of the world, I think that also changes what the priority is. And so we understand, hey, this is a time period in our lives where we're going to be experiencing this for a known limited amount of time, and we need to make the most of it. And so maybe that in those times of life, those seasons of life, then that vacation piece bumps up in my mind. Then all of a sudden it becomes a bigger priority than it has been in the past.
Oh man, you just unlocked how I've been tricking you into vacations, our marriage.
We're
not spending enough on vacation. Time to move. And
to
make it bump it up on the priority list for Mr. Saver.
Why am I feeling uncomfortable now? Well, actually, this is good. We're having the conversation. So now that the secret's out, now I know to say no to that next move.
I think the biggest thing, though, is that you do need to have a budget for vacation. The last thing you want to do is be like, we're going on this trip. And guess what? Mr. Visa and Mr. MasterCard are going to pay for it, because you will not leave that trip feeling good. You will come back with more stress, tons of bills, and other things are going to happen. Like, the last thing you want to do is to finance and borrow for a vacation. So, maybe you're not in a place where you have to save every month. Maybe you can save up for 1 or 2 months and then take that trip. But whatever it is, be intentional and make sure you cash flow that trip. It'll put so much more freedom on it and so much more relaxation than worrying, adding up the dollars as you're sitting out to dinner. Oh man, can I order a Coke with dinner, or should I just get water? How much is this costing me? So if you go in like you have the money, you're able and willing and ready to spend it, it's going to be so much more freeing and fun, and you're going to really look back on that trip with fun than coming back and being like, now I got to spend the next 6 months paying for this trip that we already had, and it's done and over with, and the excitement's over, and now I have all this pain.
Yeah. Yep. Completely right.
Yes. And I know like the best vacations that I've had with David are ones where it's kind of already paid in advance. Like all inclusive are like amazing vacations with David, because it's like, boom, we've paid for it. The food, everything's included. He's not adding up like, oh man, this meal costs $100 or whatever. It's just like he can truly enjoy as well. So,
well, and I would say the other thing that's helped with me on vacations is having that vacation budget, so that I know here is how much money we're spending on vacation. And in our case, we actually throw that vacation money into a separate account, separate bank account, where we say this is our vacation fund, and we can spend every dollar out of this year. And I know that when that money is gone, our vacations are done. And so I'm not worried about, are we going to be overspending on vacation above what we originally talked about? No, because it's all coming out of here, and we know how much is there, and when it's gone, it's gone. And we can talk about maybe next year we want to put some more in, or maybe even next month we want to put more in. But but right now, this is what we've agreed to, and we're not going to bend from that. And there's freedom in that, for me at least.
Yeah, and I know that like saving and doing a budget for some people is not fun, yours included. But like when it's for vacation, it's like you've got this reward at the end. It's like, okay, have some fun talking about it as a couple to be like, where do you want to go? Even if you don't have a lot of money, get creative, find ways, that fit in your budget and come up with a fun idea, start figuring out how long it's going to take to save, put it together and it makes it fun to put it away because you're like, at the end of this, you're going to have this amazing trip that you've been looking forward to and can do. My mother is the queen of doing like countdown calendars. Whenever we were little and we had a big trip, she would create a countdown calendar for all of us to mark off the days on how many days till the trip. So, get creative, get fun. It
Well,
should be something that's fun, but you want to be able to have the freedom when you're on it.
and I was going to say it doesn't. None of these things have to be big budget, and we've done some small budget vacation weekend trip. We used to do. We had a separate weekend fund basically, and one of those things that we did was they were kind of like mini vacations. And one of the things that we did was we had a surprise date day. And we gave each other a small budget. I think it was $50. We gave each other $50. It's not super small. It's enough to do. It was enough to do a little something.
It did not include gas for the car.
It
I
did
had to
include
exclude
gas for the
that.
car. Okay, okay. But it was you could get a very like a small lunch or a small dinner, and you could go have do an activity that cost something, right? It was basically a date day, and we planned it out for one person would plan it out for the other one, and it really felt like a little mini vacation to me. It was amazing, and it was just full of surprise and joy, and I don't know, it was a blast. But the point is that this is stuff that you can do on just about any budget. Well, you can do on any budget.
Yep.
And it's just a matter of what's the scale that you want to do, and you can still have fun. You can still enjoy it. You could do it on $10 if you wanted to.
Right.
So yeah, it, I'm wondering if we should transition over maybe to our next topic. So as we've talked a lot here about how you and I have worked with vacations and questions, how we've planned things out. What do we have for a question of the week related to this topic, Heather?
Yeah, great question. So what we want to do is every week we want you to be able to go home and keep the conversation going. So we want communication is huge, especially when it comes to money and your marriage and your relationship. So keep the conversation going. So this is kind of a fun topic. So here's what we'd like you to chat about with your significant other. How important are vacations to you? And what expectations do you have for vacations? Are you extravagant, lots of money, or are you, hey, a day trip, camping trip? And what is reasonable for a vacation budget? Do you have a budget? Have you talked about a budget? What do you think is a right amount to spend at this point in time? So there's some topics that we think would be fun and good for you to carry on the conversation.
Yeah, so we encourage you to continue that conversation. Hopefully, that's the reason you're listening to this, because you have an interest in better understanding how to work with your spouse around money, having those conversations with your spouse around money or your significant other. And these are the questions like this. Heather and I have had these conversations. You heard us talking about it here today, and we hope that you'll be able to get some value out of this conversation as well with your significant other. So with that, I think we've about used up our time for today. But I just want to remind you that whether you're a spender or a saver, remember that your best financial life lives somewhere in the middle, and live it to the max. So thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you next week. Have a good one.